The last time I did a video talking about the Oscars, it was about some comments that Richard Dreyfuss had made. Now, this is not me giving a kudos to anything Richard Dreyfuss said, because I had to check him, because Richard Dreyfuss has said some very anti-black things in the past. But he was basically talking about how he doesn't like this direction that the Oscars is going in. And I believe I did that video a couple months ago. I think it was maybe back in April, March at the earliest, where he had made some comments. Well, now fast forward to June, which is June 19, 2023, which is the day I'm recording this video. I'm talking about the Oscars again, because a report just went out where the Academy is doing or reworking the rules on how a film can get nominated for Best Picture. And when you think about it, it doesn't seem fair, like with what they're doing. But I'm going to go ahead and explain to you basically what it is. Basically, they have these new quote-unquote diversity rules where you have to have a certain particular representation in a film in order to get nominated for Best Picture. So it's not based off of the performance of the film, it's based on who you have in there, which means that leaves the room open for just about any film to get nominated at this point, even ones that wouldn't qualify by their standards. But I'm gonna go ahead and read the article so you can get a breakdown for yourself why this is, and I'm gonna give my take at the end why I believe that they're doing this, and I think this is one of the only reasons they're doing it. Oscar voters have slammed the Academy as completely ridiculous after new diversity rules for Best Picture means that some of the most lauded previous winners, such as The Godfather and Schindler's List, would not qualify for a nomination. Under the new regulation, films will need to meet minimum requirements related to representation and inclusion. This means from 2024, the Academy of Motion Picture will disqualify films from Best Picture contention that are deemed not to have enough actors in the cast and crew who are ethnic minorities, and when they say that means basically anybody who's not white, from the Academy, as in the LGBT community, or are disabled. Now, let me just say this. When you talk about the Academy or disabled, you do realize that the Academy and those who are disabled do not have a color or a race or an ethnic background. That could be anybody. So that means that a white person could still be nominated for a particular role that they portrayed. They just have to fit into either that lifestyle, or they have to fit into being disabled, quote unquote. It means that a string of Best Picture winners from over the decades, such as 2001 winner Gladiator and 1977 winner All the President's Men, will lose out on the prestigious award if nominated today. The new selection process has been slammed by the voting members of the Academy, with one director branding the decision completely ridiculous. The unnamed filmmaker told the New York Post, "I'm for diversity, but to make you cast certain types of people if you want to get nominated, that makes the whole process contrived. The person who is right for the part should get the part." Well, in this case, the nomination. The director called the decision crazy and said no production should have to limit its choices to who to cast. Another director questioned whether Schindler's List would have not been nominated since there were no non-white people in primary roles, and asked whether Jewish people would be considered under the underrepresented racial or ethnic group. While a Hollywood insider claimed that most people within the industry do not favor the new rules, but do not want to speak out in fear of quote-unquote cancel culture. Everybody thinks the Academy went too far. It's ridiculous to tell us we have to regulate our work, he told the news site. To qualify for Best Picture next year in what will be the 96th Academy Awards, film must meet 2 of the 4 of the following criteria, and I'm about to read them to you right now. They have the criteria in the description. Standard A, on screen, and under it says the film must meet one of the following. At least one of the lead or significant supporting actors is from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. Basically, like I said, anybody who is not white. At least 30% of all actors in secondary and more minor roles are from an underrepresented group. The main storyline, theme, or narrative of the film is centered on an underrepresented group. Standard B, also known as the team, says the film must meet one of the following. At least 2 of the creative leadership positions and department heads, such as the director, cinematographer, or costume designer, are from underrepresented groups, and at least one of those must belong to an underrepresented racial or ethnic group. At least 6 other crew and technical positions, such as the first AD or script supervisor, are from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, and the last one states at least 30% of the film's crew is from an underrepresented group. Standard C, called Access, this is the film must meet both criteria, so they don't got a choice with the Standard C. It says the distribution or financing company has paid apprenticeships or internships from underrepresented groups. The production, distribution, and or financing companies offers below the skill development to the underrepresented. And the last one, Standard D, says audience development. And it reads, the film must have multiple in-house senior executives from underrepresented groups on the marketing, publicity, and or distribution teams. He added that while filmmakers talk about it amongst ourselves, it is not worth speaking up publicly. Jaws star Richard Dreyfuss, who I talked about and alluded to at the beginning of this video, however, has been extremely vocal on the matter, previously claiming the quote-unquote woke agenda, and that's probably one of the reasons I got it, because I don't like that word, how they bastardized that word anyway, made him want to vomit. In a scathing review of the rules last month, he told PBS Firing Line, "They make me vomit. No one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is. What are we risking? Are we really risking hurting people's feelings? You can't legislate that. You have to let life be life, and I'm sorry, I don't think there is a minority or majority in the country that has to be catered to like that." Although, if you look throughout history, we know who's been catered to the most, and it's people that look like you, Richard Dreyfuss. I think I said that in my video about him then. Dreyfuss, who won Best Actor in 1978 for his leading role in The Goodbye Girl, added, "This is an art form, it's also a form of commerce, and it makes money, but it's still an art. And no one should be telling me as an artist that I have to give in to the latest, most current idea of what morality is. New films will need to meet 2 out of the 4 new standards. These are having a character from an underrepresented racial or ethnic group, have a plot that focuses on an underrepresented group, or at least 30% of the cast from 2 or more groups that are underrepresented. Underrepresented groups includes women, ethnic minorities, those from the LGBTQ community, and the disabled." Again, when you think about women, again, that you can just easily shoehorn white women in there right there. And when it comes to the disabled into the academy, that can be, you can shoehorn white people in there, but they just got to fit under that criteria. One filmmaker previously told The Hollywood Reporter, "I don't know, maybe someone on my crew was neurodivergent. It's not my place to ask, did they do their job? Great. And how are we going to know who's gay when it's illegal to ask people?" While another unnamed producer added, "The intention is commendable, but a lot of the questions I felt uncomfortable asking. I wasn't going to write to all of the actors and ask what their sexual orientation is. And if it's not something offered up in their bio, are you really going to say, hey, are you disabled?" The new rules will be underway in time for the next year's 96th Annual Academy Awards. Over the last few years, the winners of Best Picture at the Oscars would still have won the award as they met the diversity quota. This year's winner, Everything Everywhere All at Once, had a mostly Asian cast, while 2022's winner, Coda, documents the life of a deaf family in Gloucester, Massachusetts. The 2021 winner, Nomadland, focuses on a widow traveling around the U.S. in a van, played by Frances McDormand, while 2020 winner, Parasite, focuses on South Korean families. And 2019 winner, Green Book, centered on exploring racism in the Jim Crow South in 1962. Other films nominated in recent years, however, may not have hit the mark. The new rendition of All Quiet on the Western Front would not have been nominated because of its white male cast. It is likely that Elvis would have met the criteria, as there are probably enough women and minorities to hit 30% and qualify. Shin Piazza, co-author of the Academy Awards, The Complete Unofficial History, told the Post. Joker, The Irishman, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Vice, Hacksaw Ride, I think that's supposed to be Hacksaw Ridge, Bridge of the Spies, American Sniper, and Nebraska are all films from the last decade that would no longer make the cut for a nomination. Looking further back, Martin Scorsese's Departed from 2007 and The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King would not have met the new diversity requirements. An unnamed film critic added that if a truly outstanding film does not meet those requirements, the filmmakers will just have to accept it, while a Hollywood executive said the rules cannot be implemented without hurting the movie. So I thought that was very interesting. And one thing that I heard too that they was trying to do was they was trying to do some kind of category where they can incorporate more non-traditional films like comic book films outside of animation. And what I mean by that is because if you think of movies like Into the Spider-Verse, it's a comic book film, but it's also an animation, and it did win an Oscar for that. And I can actually see it being nominated for an Oscar in that aspect for the animation this time around as well, and possibly winning. I think it's going to come down between that and the Super Mario Brothers. But initially, I had one take on why I believe they're doing this, but I also have to throw in this other one. Another reason they're doing this, well, one reason I believe that they're doing this is because when you look back at all the years and all the winners when it comes to these awards and all the controversies that even came from it, even from that hashtag Oscar so white, which I thought was, okay, I saw what you were doing in the beginning, but then after a while it's like, okay, you're trying to beg and whine to get something, but okay, whatever. And when you look at a history of all the winners, of course, we know most of them happen to be lily white, and most of the cast sometimes happen to be lily white as well. And then you started to see the change over the years as time went forward. You know, stuff started to kind of switch up a little bit. That's one take that I have right there. But my biggest take, which is the one that I had already planned in my mind before I even pressed record to make this video, is ratings. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Every year the Oscars air, we always hear how the ratings continue to tank every single year. They seem to always go down. They never can go up higher than the previous year. They just seem to always go low. Even before the pandemic hit, the Oscars ratings were always seemingly low. Like they kept going lower and lower. People would complain like it's boring. The host was lackluster. Sometimes they didn't have a host. But the biggest one is that it's too long. And it is a long show. You gotta think, this is like a 3-hour show. You're talking about something that airs at like traditionally at 8 o'clock p.m. and it ends after 11 p.m. on a Sunday, when most people got to get up and go to work the next day, so they're not even catching the whole thing. A lot of people, when it comes to these award shows, they'll just catch the highlights online. Like they'll find out whoever won the next day if they really are invested into it, and then they won't watch it. And you know, it is what it is because they're over it. I'm telling you, award shows today, and this has gone beyond just the Oscars. Award shows today are way different than how they were structured back then. Back then, a lot of people used to look forward to award shows because it was something exciting to watch. And this is before the advent of social media. Like back then, people used to look forward to the Oscars. People used to look forward to the Golden Globes or the Grammys or the American Music Awards or any of these other major award shows. Nowadays, people could care less. Like completely honestly, a lot of people could care less about these shows. It really is like a grandstanding type of thing. Okay, you're giving out an award to your friends and, you know, your colleagues and whatever, and you just continue to go. And some people who win awards, their career doesn't even go past that award show. I can start listing all names, but some of you probably know exactly who I'm talking about. It's unfortunate, but they make it seem like this is like the pinnacle thing that you just have to do in order to continue with your career, when that is completely false. There's a lot of people who fall off after they get that Oscar. It's like a curse. Some will continue to thrive in a career to go forward, but some just completely fall off, and it's like, wow, you did all this work to win this Oscar. You would think you would get more roles, but that's not always the case. I think back then it was, but nowadays it's definitely not. Like you can see someone performing or acting in something right now, they win an Oscar, and then you don't hear or see from them again. And you're like, what the hell happened to this person? They was on top of the world. Where did they go? Like, did they get tired of the industry or whatever the case may be? But sometimes you'll never know. So those are my two things right there, is that, you know, for years, the Oscars has traditionally mainly awarded people who are PC. I mean, you can go back and look at the history and all of the winners, whether it's no matter what category it is. like from actor, actress, supporting actress, movie, director, writing, so on and so forth. I don't even think there's been a black director who's won. They've been nominated, but they've never won. I think John Singleton, if I'm not mistaken, was like the first black director to be nominated for Boys in the Hood, and he didn't win. And that was back in 1992, because Boys in the Hood came out in 91. And to this day, I don't think a black director has won. But now you're saying that they're throwing in this little diversity thing where it says you have to have an underrepresented group. So now it's like, now black people, there, but they're getting thrown into that category with a smorgasbord of other people, which means we can throw y'all in there and whatnot, but you still probably won't win. Because, now you got to compete against all these other groups who are not white. Then when it comes to the academy, now you got to deal with people who are all different shades. Then you got to deal with the women who are all different shades. So it's like a backhanded thing. Again, the academy's not going to lose out on this. So I'm not going to lose no sleep over it either way. So for me, it comes down to, they've heard people complain about how who the usual people always win. Not literally the same people, but the same demographic always wins. And because they're doing it for ratings, they're trying to garner those ratings back or get a quote unquote diverse watch. Because let's be real here, if you pulled up the ratings for the Oscars and demographic wise who watched it, it's probably mostly PC. So here you can see right here, and this is from The Guardian, and it says the audience for the 2023 Academy Awards broadcast improved substantially on last year's unimpressive figures, with a 12% jump on what was the second worst ratings performance in history. Early ratings from Nielsen supplied to The Hollywood Reporter said that the show on ABC attracted an average of 18.7 million viewers compared to 16.6 million in 2022. The audience share in the key 18 to 49 age demographic also improved from last year. So it had a slight jump compared to from last year, but not a huge jump. They probably saw this and that's when they decided to act on it, but I don't know if that's going to last if they implement this, and from what I'm gathering, it's probably going to drop, and we'll probably have to look into that when that happens next year. One other thing I also looked into was distribution of voters at the Academy Awards, and this was in 2022, so I highly doubt that much has changed between last year and this year. 81% white, 19% non-white. So that's your that's black people south of the Borderian, Asians, and any other group that's not under the white umbrella. And it makes you wonder, how is it broken down in the non-white category? That's probably why they had to lump everyone into 19%, because if they broke that thing up by actual demographic, like by ethnic group, it would look like little slices, like little small slices, almost crumbs. So that's why they had to lump everyone into the non-white, because it was the easiest way to see this while this is still very dominant and present. So this probably also has another thing to do with it as well. And that's something else people have been complaining about over the years, is why is this voting thing, why is it overwhelmingly white? And let's also be real here, not only is it overwhelmingly white, but it's overwhelmingly white male. So, and then when you think about this whole diversity thing they're talking about, when you're talking about the academy, the LGBT as I'm referring to with this in this instance, and the quote unquote disabled, if they're PC and women in their PC, they're going to fall, and they become a voter, they're going to fall into here. And usually what happens when a person wins, they kind of get thrown into the voting board. That's usually like the payoff, after you win the award, is that you can become a member of the voting board. And guess what? They're going to get thrown into here, increasing this number even higher. So it's a lot of factors that are at play here when you think about it. And to be honest with you, this number right here is always going to be dominant. This number right here, I can see it shrinking. And this number right here probably barely moved between last year and this year. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you have to really think, why is the Academy doing this? Like, what is their underlying reason? It's not because they're trying to be nice. It's not because they feel bad. or anything like that. There is always a motive and a method to the madness. And I gave my personal beliefs, not personal, my personal take on why I believe that they're doing this. Now, I can't wait to hear what y'all got to say down in the comments or in the chat of why do you think they're doing this? Because I definitely cannot wait to hear what y'all have to say. Most of y'all don't care about these award shows anyway, and I get it, because I don't either. But I said I had to talk about this because it's just something rubs me the wrong way with what they are doing here. It doesn't, something just is off. In the back of my mind, I feel like there's an underlying motive to why they're doing this. If this is their way of trying to get ratings, good luck. This is a good way to probably shun away a good chunk of the audience that you already have that's still around. Remember, they got an increase this year from last year. I have a feeling that number is going to drop next year because of this right here. And I also wanted to throw this in here in case y'all don't know who this is, and I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't. This is Janet Yang. She is the president of the Academy of Motion Pictures. Basically, she's over the Oscars, and I think she just got appointed this job. And how ironic, she got appointed this job the same year that Everything Everywhere All at Once pretty much sweeps the Oscars, which we know is a predominantly Asian cast. I believe that she became president, I think, last year. So, I mean, not saying it's a coincidence, but it just might be a coincidence. I'm just saying. But the reason why I'm bringing her up is just in case PC thinks that is black people, you know, because they, you know, they love to point to us, that asked for this. We ain't asked for it. I know I didn't. I could care less what they do. But we are not the ones that put anything into place. So if you want to point the finger of blame anywhere for these new rules, here's the woman that basically had to sign off and say, okay, I agree with this, and say that this is okay. There were probably some people that brought the suggestion to her, but at the end of the day, she is the one that okayed it. I just want to put that out there as a disclaimer.